Today, the Earth's population has surpassed 8 billion people. Imagine, that's 8 billion stories, voices, smiles, and destinies. For comparison, in just the last 100 years, we've quadrupled in number. Once only a few million people lived on the planet, and now that many can reside in a single large city. This figure prompts us to think about the future. Will resources be sufficient? Will we learn to care for the planet? Yet at the same time, 8 billion represents 8 billion opportunities, ideas, and discoveries that could change the world. Interestingly, would you guess that there are people who find pleasure simply in the process? These individuals are called autotelics. They don't need money, praise, or fame to engage in what they love. Their motivation comes from within. They can passionately draw, program, play an instrument, or write books, losing track of time. In psychology, autotelics are considered more resilient to stress and often experience a state of flow, where a person is completely absorbed in a task. For them, the outcome is not as important as the journey itself. It's like finding joy not only in the travel but also in the very act of moving forward. Once, Xerox was not a generic term but a proud brand name. Today we say make a photocopy even when using a completely different machine. This is an example of so-called brand genericide, when a name becomes so popular that it turns into a generic term. The same has happened with escalator, Scotch tape, and even Frisbee. For the company, this is not a cause for celebration but a serious loss. They lose legal protection and the brand no longer belongs to its creators. The paradox is that excessive fame can turn into a disaster. You created a legend and now it roams the world without you. In the Middle Ages, there was an unusual unit of volume, the ton. But it wasn't the familiar weight measurement. It referred to the amount of wine that could fit in a huge barrel. Merchants and winemakers used this method of measurement for trade. Imagine, at a fair, deals were made not in liters or even barrels, but in whole tons of wine. Today, this word is associated with heaviness and mass, but once it was linked to joy and feasting. This detail of history serves as a reminder that many modern terms originated from very practical needs of the past, when wine was almost a currency. The Incas in South America built suspension bridges made of grass and vines 2,000 years ago. These woven structures connected the banks of mountain rivers and served as real roads between villages. Every year, the residents of nearby villages would reweave the ropes to ensure the bridge remained strong. Imagine dozens of people gather, weaving ropes from grass and renewing an entire bridge as one big ritual. Despite the simplicity of the materials, these bridges could support not only people but also caravans with cargo. This is an amazing example of how engineering can emerge directly from nature. Vladimir Lenin was not only a revolutionary but also an avid chess player. During his exile in Siberia, he played correspondence games, solved chess problems and studies, and later often used chess metaphors in his writings. For him, chess was not just a game but a training ground for strategic thinking. Imagine, he could manage several games at once while in exile and simultaneously work on political texts. Chess helped him hone his patience and ability to calculate moves. Thus, the revolutionary known for decisive actions was a cool-headed strategist on the board, capable of waiting for the right moment to make a winning move. About 10% of people on the planet are left-handed. The world is primarily designed for right-handed individuals, from scissors and door handles to school desks. However, left-handed people often stand out with a unique style of thinking. There's a theory that their brain hemispheres function differently, which may explain the prevalence of creative and unconventional personalities among them. Imagine living in a world where everything is slightly inconvenient. Yet this inconvenience can sometimes spark ingenuity. Left-handed individuals seem to see the world from a different perspective. Today, the pyramids of Giza appear gray and austere, but in ancient times they looked quite different. They were covered with smooth white limestone slabs that reflected sunlight and shone like giant mirrors in the desert. The peaks of some pyramids were adorned with golden caps, pyramidions, that sparkled especially brightly. Imagine how it must have looked. White mountains with golden tops under the blazing sun. Modern tourists see only the stone cores, but once these were the most dazzling structures on Earth, symbols of the wealth and power of the pharaohs. Even now, thousands of years later, they still captivate the imagination. Have you ever wondered why a person can't walk straight with their eyes closed? Scientists have conducted experiments where people were asked to walk in a straight line without visual cues. Almost everyone ended up moving in a curved trajectory, often in a spiral. The reason lies in our proprioception. which is the sense of our body's position in space. Without visual guidance, the brain gradually loses its way. Interestingly, a person can navigate by stars or even by smell. But as soon as we take away the familiar visual control, we turn into drunken sailors, unable to walk straight even for 100 meters. Beneath the massive feet of elephants lies an intriguing secret. They have unique toes. These special bony structures help distribute their weight and allow the animals to move almost silently. Thanks to them, an elephant walks softly despite its tons of mass. They sense the ground like a cat's pads and provide stability even on unstable surfaces. This is why these giants can calmly tread on sand, clay, or even marshy land. Their gait is remarkably light, and if you close your eyes, you might not even notice a whole elephant sneaking up on you. Nature has once again demonstrated its engineering genius. Some crabs turn sea anemones into living weapons. Tiny crabs of the genus Libinia hold sea anemones in their claws and wave them around like living clubs. The anemones sting enemies with their venomous tentacles, protecting the crab, while receiving food and a chance to reproduce in return. If a crab loses its anemone, it can tear another one in half, and that one will regenerate into two new individuals. Nature's way of providing a backup plan. This is one of the most unusual examples of symbiosis. A small crab with living weapon gloves that can fend off even larger foes. A regular apple is made up of 90% water. That's why it's so juicy and refreshing. When you bite into an apple, it's like drinking a mini glass of pure water with vitamins. It's no wonder apples are a popular snack for travel. They're light, nutritious, and quench your thirst. Interestingly, thanks to their high water content, apples can be stored for a long time without losing freshness. They are like a natural bottle of drink, just in the form of a fruit. And perhaps one of the most convenient snacks created by nature. The story of the fire hydrant began with irony. Its first patent was burned. The tale is ironic. An invention created to fight fire itself vanished in flames. The exact design of the first hydrant remains unknown because the documents were destroyed in the fire. Scholars and historians can only speculate about who might have been the inventor. The hydrants we are familiar with on the streets only began to appear in large numbers years later. It creates a true paradox. We use this invention every day, yet the name of the first person who devised this way to save lives is forever lost to the fire. Imagine that the North Star is not just a solitary light, but a whole family. We tend to think of the North Star as a lone beacon for travelers in the night. However, it is not a singleton but rather an entire ensemble. There lies a trio, the bright Polaris A, its tiny companion Polaris AB, and the neighbor Polaris B. To us on Earth, they merge into a single point, but through astronomers' telescopes, this celestial trio becomes visible. Picture a lantern where the light comes not from one bulb, but from an entire string of lights. It's symbolic. Even the guiding star, which has served as a landmark for centuries, does not stand alone but is part of a team. Chinese woman Xi Jinping became famous for not cutting her hair for over 40 years. She started growing it at the age of 13 and reached a length of 5.62 meters. That's almost 18 feet. Just imagine how much time it takes to care for such a braid. Brushing alone takes a couple of hours, and washing is a whole ritual. Sometimes she braids her hair or wraps it around herself to make it easier to move. Her record is listed in the Guinness Book of Records, and so far, no one has broken it. It's reminiscent of the tale of Rapunzel, but in real life, where determination and patience become a true legend. Imagine that life on Earth could hit a reset button. There's a chilling hypothesis called Medea. It suggests that microbes can trigger mass extinction events. The idea is that microorganisms, which have dominated the planet for billions of years, can alter the environment so drastically that complex life simply ceases to exist. It's as if Earth returns to a primordial state. This concept is controversial yet eerie. Nature sometimes seems to reset its experiments, as if pressing a restart button. We tend to view life as invincible, but this theory reminds us that its greatest enemy might be itself. In the town of Talkeetna, Alaska, they've come up with a tourist attraction. A trained bear delivers the mail. Of course, he doesn't go door to door but participates in a show, carrying baskets filled with letters inside the post office. Tourists love the idea of sending a postcard with a bear stamp. It's a unique keepsake. The locals have turned this into an attraction, and now the bear postman has become a true symbol of the town. It sounds almost like a fairy tale, but it's actually a real way to attract visitors and make ordinary mail a local landmark. The Nile is the longest river in the world, stretching about 6,650 kilometers. It flows through 11 countries in Africa and serves as a source of life for millions of people. The ancient Egyptians referred to the Nile as a gift from the gods, as the river's floods brought fertile soil and allowed crops to be grown in the desert land. Today, the Nile remains not only an important transportation artery, but also a symbol of history, culture, and the power of nature. It is remarkable that one river can connect so many peoples and eras, becoming a true thread of time that stretches across millennia. The starfish eats in a rather unusual way. It turns its stomach inside out and wraps it around its prey, such as a shell. The food is digested externally, and then the stomach is pulled back in. It's like a portable container. Take it out, eat, and put it away. This method allows the starfish to handle prey that is difficult to swallow whole. It's amusing that behind the calm appearance of these sea creatures lies such a trick with their stomachs. They seem to know the secret to an unconventional approach to eating. Glass seems like something familiar to us. Windows, bottles, phone screens. But if you think about it, it's a true marvel of nature and human ingenuity. It all starts with ordinary sand, which is heated to temperatures over 1,400 degrees. It melts and transforms into a transparent material. This process has been known since the time of ancient Egypt, and since then it has hardly changed, only become more precise. Consider how amazing it is. What crunches under our feet on the beach can, after being subjected to fire, become a transparent window through which we view the world. Ordinary sand has the power to reshape civilization. Many people consider donkeys to be stubborn and dull animals, but in reality they are much smarter and more emotional than they seem. Donkeys have excellent memories for friends, both humans and other animals, and can hold on to such memories for up to 20 years. They can sense their owner's mood, enjoy attention, feel jealous, and even become sad if ignored. In fact, donkeys have a rich inner world and value friendship just as much as dogs do. Therefore, it's not surprising that in countries where donkeys live alongside people, they are regarded not just as helpers, but almost as full-fledged family members. Those ears and gentle eyes hide much more than we tend to think. Want to hear one of the strangest reasons for toxicity? Bright poison dart frogs are deadly. Their skin secretes a toxin that can kill a human. But here's the surprising part. They aren't toxic on their own. In captivity, where they are fed a regular diet, their skin becomes safe. It turns out the secret lies in their diet. In the wild, they eat specific ants and insects that contain toxic substances. So, the poison is a result of their nutrition. Nature seems to show that even a small frog can become a weapon if it has the right ingredients on its menu. The Sahara is not just a sea of sand, but also a place where it can sing. Some dunes emit a low hum or even melodic sounds when the sand slips down their slopes. It's like an organ built right into the desert. The reason lies in the unique shape and size of the grains. They rub against each other and create vibrations. Imagine walking on a dune, and suddenly the entire mound starts to resonate, as if alive. Travelers describe this sound as enchanting and mystical. It's no wonder that local tribes have legends about spirits singing in the sands. Butterflies have taste receptors located right on their legs. When they land on a flower, they taste it with their feet. This helps them determine whether the plant is suitable for feeding or laying eggs. For us, taste involves our tongue and lips, while for butterflies, it's a light touch of their legs. So, every landing is like a tasting session for them. It's amusing to think that if humans had the same ability, we would taste soup just by touching our fingers to the bowl, but for butterflies, it works perfectly. The paradox is that evidence often reinforces misconceptions. This phenomenon is called the backfire effect. When a person is presented with facts that contradict their beliefs, they don't change their mind. Instead, they cling to their viewpoint even more strongly. This aspect of psychology explains why debates about politics, religion, or contentious theories rarely end in persuasion. It turns out that truth doesn't always triumph over stubbornness. People tend to defend their views like a fortress, even when the walls of that fortress have begun to crumble under the weight of facts. Who would have thought that in London, where rain is more common than sunshine, there's a real underground beach? In an old subway tunnel, an unusual space has been created. Sand, palm trees, and lighting that mimics sunset. Parties and concerts take place there, and stepping inside feels like entering a parallel reality. Above you, trains rumble by, while people sip cocktails on the shore of an underground sea. This place is like a little secret of the city. No one expects to find a beach beneath the asphalt of a metropolis. The irony is that for Londoners, it's easier to dive into the tunnel than to travel to the sea. When the Apollo astronauts landed on the moon, they left not only footprints but also special markings. These were lines and arrows that helped them navigate in the unfamiliar environment. There are no familiar horizons or road signs on the moon, making it easy to get lost. Therefore, scientists devised lunar markings in advance so that the astronauts would know where to go and how to return to the module. These simple lines became an important part of mission safety. It's amusing to think that on the moon, where there are no cars or traffic jams, there is still its own road system. The human tendency to impose order even worked on another celestial body. Who would have thought that the hockey mask was invented by a Japanese man? In 1936, goalie Teiji Honma took to the ice in an unusual piece of equipment, a face mask resembling a samurai helmet. At the time, his idea seemed strange, but it later became the foundation for modern protective gear in hockey. Today, it's hard to imagine a goalie without a mask, but it was once considered unnecessary. Honma was a pioneer who blended the traditions of his culture with the sport. Thanks to him, hockey gained an item that has saved the health of thousands of players around the world. Once, oranges were not orange at all. Their ancestors, grown in Southeast Asia, had green skin. Even today, in tropical regions, oranges often remain green, although inside they are fully ripe and sweet. Only in cooler countries does the skin lose chlorophyll and turn the familiar orange color. So, orange is more of a climatic coincidence. Imagine a supermarket where all the oranges are green. People would think they are unripe. In reality, that's how they looked in their true historical form. In Antarctica, amidst icy landscapes, there is a place where a stream of crimson water flows from beneath a glacier. It has been dubbed the Blood Falls. In reality, the water is colored due to a high iron content. It oxidizes and gives off that hue. However, it looks truly eerie. The pristine white ice and the red river resemble a scene from a horror movie. Scientists believe that beneath the ice lies an ancient lake with microorganisms that thrive in conditions with almost no oxygen. Thus, the Blood Falls are not only a spectacle but also a clue about life in extreme conditions. The medieval chivalric order still exists and even issues its own passports. The Sovereign Military Order of Malta, founded during the Crusades, is recognized by the international community as a sovereign entity despite not having its own territory. The order has its own passports, stamps, and even currency, the Maltese Scudo. It boasts tens of thousands of knights, volunteers, and doctors working around the globe. Many find it surprising that this medieval institution continues to thrive in modern times, preserving not only its traditions but also real legal privileges. It stands as one of the few examples where the past and present coexist side by side. Many people believe that lightning never strikes the same place twice, but that's a myth. In reality, for example, the Empire State Building in New York gets hit by lightning about 100 times a year. Tall buildings and structures seem to attract electricity, and their tops are specially equipped with lightning rods to prevent damage from strikes. So, lightning doesn't avoid old spots. In fact, it loves to return to them again and again. So if you find yourself near a skyscraper during a storm, know that it's one of the most common places for lightning to meet the ground. Nature once again proves that it doesn't adhere to pretty sayings. In China, there is an unusual village called Bama, where many residents live to be 100 years old or more. Scientists attribute this to a combination of clean air, mineral water, and a local diet rich in herbs and vegetables, with almost no bad habits. However, the locals have a different perspective. The secret lies in harmony with nature and a positive mindset. People here continue to work physically into old age, take walks, tend to their gardens, and their lives are filled with movement. Tourists come to see these lively seniors, hoping to adopt their habits. This place has become a symbol of the idea that longevity is not just about genetics, but also about a lifestyle that values simplicity and tranquility. Today, the computer mouse is a familiar accessory, lightweight and made of plastic. However, the first mouse, created in 1964 by engineer Douglas Engelbart, was made of wood. Inside, there were metal wheels that tracked movement across the table. The device looked strange and bulky, but it marked the beginning of a new era. It's hard to believe that from such a simple wooden box, modern touchpads and wireless gadgets emerged. This story serves as a reminder. Great technologies often arise from very humble beginnings, and sometimes all it takes is one wooden experiment to change the world. Flamingos can stand on one leg for hours. For us, it's a feat of balance, but for them, it's complete relaxation. Their joints are structured in a way that makes holding the pose easy and almost effortless. Think of it as having a built-in freeze-frame mode. Scientists don't fully understand how this works. It's as if their muscles lock in place, allowing the bird to even fall asleep without losing balance. Imagine a yogi meditating in a complex pose for hours, but without the slightest tension. For flamingos, it's as natural as sitting in a chair is for us. It may seem that sports should unite people, but one day a football field became the spark for war. It sounds absurd, but in 1969, football matches were the last straw in the conflict between Honduras and El Salvador. The teams faced off on the field, but underlying their game were much sharper issues: overpopulation, land disputes, and social tension. The matches added fuel to the fire, leading to a war that would later be called the Football War. It lasted only a few days but claimed thousands of lives. The irony is that a sport meant for unity and joy unexpectedly became the trigger for a real tragedy. The story of Arthur Tudor and Catherine of Aragon illustrates that even a common language doesn't always prevent misunderstandings. When Arthur Tudor, the brother of the future Henry VIII, first met his fiancée Catherine of Aragon, it turned out they couldn't communicate verbally. The issue was that their correspondence had been conducted in Latin, but their pronunciations were so different that they simply couldn't understand each other. It's amusing that a language considered universal among the European nobility ultimately let the young couple down. Imagine, beautiful formal letters, but in reality there were just gestures and bewildered looks. A sunset on Mars is a true wonder. Unlike Earth, where the sky is painted in shades of red and orange, on Mars the sun sets in a blue glow. This is due to the planet's thin atmosphere, which scatters light differently than ours. As a result, the daytime sky appears pale yellow, and at sunset, the horizon ignites with a stunning blue light. Astronauts who find themselves there will witness a truly alien landscape. Imagine standing on the cold Martian plains, gazing up at a foreign yet mesmerizing sky. It's like a painting by an artist who decided to swap the usual colors. You won't believe it, but Isaac Newton was a secret agent. At the end of the 17th century, he was appointed as the Master of the Royal Mint in England. At that time, the country was suffering from an influx of counterfeiters. Newton didn't limit himself to office work. He disguised himself, visited taverns, gathered evidence, and brought criminals to justice. His efforts led to dozens of arrests. So the author of The Laws of Mechanics was simultaneously waging a real battle against the underground. History remembers him as a great scientist, but few know that part of his life resembled a spy novel. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. You can sue for hundreds of thousands over coffee. In 1994, American Stella Liebeck burned herself with hot coffee from McDonald's. The drink was so overheated that she suffered serious burns and underwent skin graft surgeries. The court found the chain guilty. It turned out the company knowingly served coffee at a temperature that was hazardous to health. Ultimately, Liebeck was awarded $640,000 in damages. This case became a symbol of American lawsuits, but it actually highlighted how even a familiar cup of coffee can turn into a source of trouble. In India, a man spent 22 years in court over an overpayment of 20 rupees. Tungnath Chaturvedi, an Indian resident, bought a train ticket, and the cashier made a mistake in the calculations. The overpayment was just 20 rupees, less than half a dollar. But the principle turned out to be more valuable. Chaturvedi filed a lawsuit and sought justice for a full 22 years, attending hundreds of hearings. In the end, he won. The railways were ordered to refund the overpayment and pay compensation with interest. This story illustrates that sometimes it's not about the money, but about the determination of a person willing to go to great lengths for justice, even for something seemingly trivial. In Rome, a pizza over 40 meters in diameter was once baked. It was named Ottavia in honor of the Roman emperor. The weight of this culinary monster exceeded 23 tons. Special ovens and a team of pizzaiolos worked for several days to prepare it. Imagine a square where instead of asphalt, there's a giant crust topped with tomato sauce and cheese. This pizza could feed an entire city. Interestingly, it was completely gluten-free, ensuring that the record not only amazed but also catered to those with dietary restrictions. A true gastronomic spectacle for all of Italy. In the late 90s, Furby toys appeared in the US. Furry, chatty creatures with electronic eyes. Rumors circulated that they could record conversations and send them somewhere. It got to the point where they were officially banned from government facilities, including the National Security Agency. Of course, it turned out that Furbies were not spies at all, just a myth and panic surrounding a new toy. But history shows how people sometimes fear technology. A toy designed for children's play briefly became a dangerous agent. Funny, isn't it? Iceland is one of the few places on Earth without mosquitoes. The climate here is such that insects can't complete their life cycle. It's too cold in winter and the temperature changes too rapidly in summer. For tourists, it's a paradise. You can stroll through forests and by lakes without the annoying buzzing. The locals joke that this is one of their country's main advantages. Imagine, summer, a campfire, a tent, and not a single mosquito bite. For us, it sounds like a dream, but for Icelanders, it's just a way of life. Once in the Chesapeake Bay, oysters created real, living islands. In the 19th century, there were so many oysters in the Chesapeake Bay that they literally covered the surface of the water. Huge clusters of mollusks even obstructed ships from passing. But as usual, humans intervened. In just 100 years, they nearly wiped out these colossal stocks. By 2011, the oyster population had declined by 99.7%. From a rich natural carpet, only tiny fragments remained. A stark reminder that nature is not infinite. Even wild wolves know how to wag their tails, and they do it with a specific meaning. We are used to dogs expressing joy and friendliness this way. But their wild ancestors, the wolves, do the same thing, albeit with a different significance. Young wolves wag their tails in front of older ones, showing respect and submission. Sometimes the tail helps to ease a tense situation. It's a way of saying, "I'm not a threat. I acknowledge your authority." Thus, this gesture in dogs is not a coincidence but an ancient legacy. It's amusing to think that when you play with your dog's tail, you are witnessing an echo of the behavior of its distant ancestors who lived in forests and packs. Human hearing is limited to frequencies ranging from about 20 to 20,000 hertz. Anything below is infrasound, and anything above is ultrasound. We can't hear them, but animals can. Dogs respond to whistles that sound like silence to us, while dolphins communicate using frequencies beyond our hearing range. This means that the world around us is much richer in sounds than we can perceive. It's as if we're listening to a radio on one frequency. While there are dozens of stations, this serves as a reminder that our senses are just a small filter of reality. In 2001, the residents of the Indian state of Kerala were stunned. Red rain was falling from the sky. The droplets left crimson puddles as if after a mystical sign. People thought of the apocalypse or the blood of gods. Scientists, however, discovered that particles of sand and spores from microscopic algae had entered the atmosphere, coloring the rain. This phenomenon lasted for several weeks, and each day felt like a scene from a science fiction movie. For the locals, this event remains one of the most mysterious memories, told to children as a miracle that happened in their land. In 2017, Emma Morano from Italy passed away, the last person born in the 19th century. She lived to be 117 years old and witnessed a world changing faster than ever before. Imagine, in her childhood, there were no airplanes or televisions. And by the end of her life, people were using smartphones and the internet. She experienced 2 world wars, dozens of rulers, and an entire era. Emma's story serves as a reminder that each person carries a whole library of time within them. And with her passing, the last page of the 19th century was turned. Some monkeys, like macaques, cannot stick out their tongues. Their muscle structure limits this movement. For us, sticking out our tongues is a childish prank or a way to tease a friend, but for them, it's impossible. Interestingly, macaques manage their food perfectly well. They crack hard fruits, process bark, and use their hands with remarkable precision. So the absence of a flexible tongue is compensated by their dexterous fingers. It's as if nature said, "All right, the tongue will be immobile, but I'll give you hands like a jeweler's." This makes their lives no less rich. They simply express themselves through actions rather than words. Sound can not only be heard but also seen. This is demonstrated using so-called chladni figures. A metal plate is sprinkled with sand and then vibrated using a bow or speaker. The grains of sand arrange themselves into intricate patterns: stars, circles, lines. Each frequency creates its own drawing. It's as if sound paints a picture right before your eyes. Interestingly, this experiment can even be replicated at home with simple materials. So music is not just something you hear, but also something you can see if you know the clever trick. In the 19th century, watermelon became not only a delicacy, but also a secret ingredient for juices. Watermelons were used not just as a standalone fruit, but also as a base for vitamin blends. They were added to juices to balance the flavor. Watermelon made the drink smoother and more pleasant, reducing the excess acidity and bitterness of other fruits. Imagine a glass of orange juice that's too sour to drink without grimacing. Add a bit of watermelon, and the taste becomes refreshing and harmonious. This technique is still used in cooking today, and it was once a true discovery. On the southern coast of Iceland, there is a black beach that is never the same. Every year, its contours change. New dunes rise in some areas, while in others, the sand completely disappears. This is all due to winds and powerful underwater currents that move the sand along the shore. Locals and tourists note that today the beach looks one way, but a year later it's different, as if someone has rearranged its parts. It feels like nature itself is painting new scenes right on the shore. This place has become a true mystery for scientists and attracts travelers, as here one can literally witness the changing land and feel the breath of the ocean, capable of reshaping entire landscapes. What if I told you that the eyes of mantis shrimp are more complex than human eyes? These tiny predators have unique vision. Each eye has 3 pupils and up to 16 types of light-sensitive cells. In comparison, humans have only 3. Mantis shrimp can see ultraviolet, infrared, and even polarized light. Their vision is so extraordinary that it helps scientists develop new camera and sensor technologies. It turns out that within the tiny body of this crustacean lies a biological supercosmos that surpasses the capabilities of our eyes and even the best cameras. A group of owls is called a parliament. This sounds very symbolic, as the owl has been regarded as a wise bird since ancient times. In Greek mythology, it accompanied the goddess Athena, and in the Middle Ages, it became a symbol of knowledge and magic. Perhaps that's why people decided that a gathering of owls resembles a meeting of sages discussing important matters. Imagine a forest at night, dozens of owls perched on branches, conversing as if they were discussing an agenda. Of course, they have no politics, but the term has taken root in the language. This is a wonderful example of how human imagination gives animals vivid and memorable names. Penguins are masters of swimming and diving, but they have another trick up their sleeves. They intentionally swallow small stones. Why? First, these pebbles help grind food in their stomachs, acting like a kind of grinding system. Second, the extra weight helps the birds dive deeper and stay underwater longer. This way, penguins become true underwater hunters. Imagine, what seems like a silly act, grabbing a stone and swallowing it, turns out to be a clever adaptation for survival. It's another example of how nature equips animals with unexpected tools that help them excel in their environment. In Switzerland, animal welfare is taken to the level of laws. You can't keep a single guinea pig alone, only in pairs or groups. This is because these little creatures are very social and quickly become sad and even ill without company. Imagine buying one guinea pig, and you could face a fine as the state considers loneliness to be real suffering for them. On the bright side, owners know that their pets live in small groups where they can always interact, sleep together, or share a carrot. This law demonstrates that animals are not toys, but living beings with feelings, and they deserve to be treated with humanity. In Sweden, donors receive a message on their phone when their blood is used to save someone's life. Imagine you donate blood, and a couple of days later you get an SMS saying, "Thank you, today your blood helped a patient." It's not only a nice gesture, but also gives a sense that your action truly matters. People start donating blood more often because they see the results right on their phones. This simple step turns an ordinary procedure into a heartwarming story of human solidarity, and perhaps it's the best "like" in the world. Digital clocks are much more accurate than mechanical ones. Electronic devices use the vibrations of a quartz crystal, which functions almost like a perfectly precise metronome. Mechanical clocks, on the other hand, rely on springs and gears, making them more prone to wear and inaccuracies. The difference can be minutes over a month, while digital clocks may only lose a few seconds. Imagine a race. One runner stays perfectly on track, while the other constantly veers off slightly. That's how it is with clocks. Yet the irony is that mechanical watches often become symbols of luxury and style. You won't believe it, but the sugar industry has been hiding the truth for decades. In the mid-20th century, sugar producers funded research that shifted the blame for heart disease onto fats and cholesterol. Scientists published articles that downplayed the dangers of sugar, redirecting attention to dangerous fats. As a result, entire generations believed that sweets were relatively safe, while the real threat was butter and meat. It was only later revealed that excess sugar is directly linked to obesity and diseases. This is one example of how business can rewrite science for its own benefit. We often perceive the nose as just an ordinary organ of smell, but in reality it is incredibly complex. It was once believed that humans could distinguish around 10,000 scents. Today, we know that our nose can detect up to 1 trillion different aromas. It's a whole universe of sensations, from the smell of fresh bread to the subtle notes of smoke or gas that can warn us of danger. Think about it. The nose helps you recall childhood memories through the aroma of grandma's pies or feel the excitement of spring through the scent of damp earth. We tend to consider sight as the primary sense, but the nose is a true superhero, working quietly and unnoticed, saving us from mistakes every day and filling our lives with memories. Today, over 1,300,000,000 people know and use English. It is not only an official language in dozens of countries, but also the language of the internet, science, and business. This means that even if you find yourself in an unfamiliar corner of the world, the chances of being able to communicate in English are still high. It has become something like a universal translator between nations. Of course, every language has its own beauty, but English has become the bridge that connects millions of different cultures. One could say it is a true key to the global world. Strangely, female tarantulas live much longer than males, up to 40 years. While males have a short lifespan after reaching maturity, females can survive for several decades. Moreover, they can go without food for up to 2 years if they have access to water. This resilience makes them some of the most unusual spiders. For many, tarantulas symbolize fear, but in reality they are surprisingly patient and enduring creatures. Their lives are slow, almost stretched out in time. And if spiders know how to wait, female tarantulas are true champions of this art. The cougar is a cat that seems to have checked off almost every location on the map. You can find it in the mountains of Canada, the deserts of Chile, the forests of the United States, and even on the outskirts of cities. It adapts to any conditions, from snow to heat. No wonder it's called the cat with 1,000 addresses. Unlike many large predators, the cougar is not afraid of human proximity and sometimes appears near settlements, yet it remains elusive and cautious. It's an incredible example of survival. Where tigers and lions are confined to specific territories, the cougar roams freely across an entire continent. Rabbits are cute and fluffy, but they have an interesting feature. Their bodies are designed in such a way that they cannot vomit. Food moves through their system in only one direction, which helps them avoid unnecessary energy loss. On one hand, this is a plus. Rabbits don't suffer from nausea. On the other hand, it's a downside. If they eat something harmful, they can't get rid of it. That's why the owners of these domestic little ears always monitor their diet. It's amusing that such delicate animals have a system that is more rigid than that of many predators. The world of mammals is diverse. Some run, some swim, some jump. But only bats can truly fly. Their wings are membranes stretched over elongated fingers, not feathers like birds. This structure makes them incredibly agile. Additionally, bats use echolocation. They emit sounds that bounce off objects, allowing them to navigate in the dark by the echoes. This enables them to hunt at night with missile-like precision. Bats play a crucial role in the ecosystem, consuming millions of insects and pollinating plants. These small nocturnal hunters are true masters of the air. A herd of goats is referred to in an unusual way. Nannies and billies. The females are called nannies, while the males are billies. This amusing terminology highlights their personalities. The goat always appears caring yet stubborn, while the buck is independent and proud. Imagine a farm where the shepherd calls not just a herd, but a team of nannies and billies. It adds a touch of humor to simple rural life. Such names show that people have always tried to see in animals not just food or assistance, but also their unique characters. Chicago is known as the Windy City, and many believe it's all about the weather. In reality, the nickname originated in the 19th century and referred to the city's politicians who were famous for their long and pompous speeches. Journalists sarcastically remarked that Chicago was blown by the wind, not due to the climate, but because of empty words. Of course, the city does experience winds from Lake Michigan, but historically it's more of a jab at talkative politicians than a meteorological fact. Interestingly, over time the original meaning was forgotten, and the nickname remained, becoming the city's official calling card. The most numerous bird in the world is neither the sparrow nor the pigeon, but the tiny red-billed qualia. This small bird, found in Africa south of the Sahara, gathers in massive flocks and literally devastates grain fields. For farmers, they are a true plague. Thousands of these birds can strip a harvest in just a few hours. The flocks of Celeus are so enormous that they appear like a moving cloud. Scientists consider them the most abundant bird species on Earth. Ironically, in cities we tend to view pigeons as symbols of mass presence, but the record actually belongs to these small African weavers. The story of Jack Daniels holds a secret. Its origins are tied to an African-American master. Nathan Nearest Green was born into slavery, and after gaining his freedom, he became a true distillation expert. He taught young Jack Daniel the art of distillation. Today, his name is officially recognized as the first master distiller at the distillery where the legendary brand later emerged. For a long time, this was kept quiet, and only recently has the story come to light. It turns out that the recipe for the famous whiskey owes its existence to a man who has been nearly forgotten. This serves as a reminder that many brands have invisible heroes behind them. The very first sound recording appeared in the 18th century, long before Edison's phonograph. The Frenchman Edouard Léon Scott de Martinville used a device called the phonautograph in 1860. It couldn't reproduce sound, it only left traces of sound waves on a glass plate. It wasn't until a century and a half later that scientists were able to decode these lines and heard a voice singing a French song. Thus, the first sounds were preserved as a ghost of the past, which could only come to life thanks to modern technology. Robert Howard, the author of Conan the Barbarian, was a friend and ally of H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft, the creator of the Cthulhu mythos, was a close friend of Robert Howard, the legendary creator of Conan. They corresponded, discussed their works, and inspired each other. When Howard took his own life at the age of 30, Lovecraft was deeply shaken and soon succumbed to illness and depression. Their friendship became a link between Lovecraft's dark cosmic horror and Howard's heroic fantasy. Thus, two completely different genres, horror and epic adventure, somehow emerged from a single creative friendship. Today, it's hard to imagine a computer without microchips, but there was a time when memory was made quite differently. In the mid-20th century, data was stored in tiny magnetic rings. Each ring could remember a bit of information, while wires threaded through them managed the writing and reading processes. This was known as ferrite memory. It looked quite simple, like beads strung on a wire. Yet, this technology was a breakthrough that allowed the first computers to operate faster and more reliably. Such memory was literally worth its weight in gold, and every cell counted. Today, it's difficult for us to believe that programs ran on rings. But that's how the era of the digital world began. The space menu has long resembled a home-cooked one, featuring borscht and cutlets instead of just tubes. Today, meals in orbit are not much different from those on Earth. Astronauts eat borscht, cutlets, and porridge, all in special packaging. Soups are heated and consumed through a straw, while solid dishes are eaten with a spoon. The main difference is that food can float away, so everything is secured with Velcro and served carefully. Many are surprised to find that lunch in space is not a futuristic powder, but rather a familiar home menu. This way, an astronaut can feel almost at home during their meal. Today we send each other emojis, hearts, and pizza in chats as if they've always existed. But the first emojis appeared in Japan in the late 90s. There were only 176 of them, and they looked very simple. A sun, a phone, a smiling face. Back then, it seemed trivial. But now, emojis have turned into a real language understood all over the world. It's amusing that the idea came from a Japanese mobile company. They just wanted to make communication easier for their users. Now, the entire world expresses emotions through these tiny images. You could say that without these little symbols, texting would be dull, like tea without sugar. The name John is familiar to everyone, but few consider how ancient it is. Its history spans over 4,000 years. It appears in texts from various cultures and eras, surviving changes in languages, religions, and traditions. Today, it remains one of the most common names in the English-speaking world. One could say that John is a bridge between ancient civilizations and modernity. Imagine, millions of people for thousands of years have responded to this simple yet resonant name. It carries the strength of tradition and symbolizes resilience, having endured through the centuries without losing its relevance. A true veteran among humanity's names. It turns out that we perceive smells not only with our noses. Our skin has receptors that respond to aromatic substances. Scientists conducted experiments by applying certain scents to the skin and observed that the cells reacted. Moreover, some aromas accelerated wound healing. It seems that our skin acts like an additional sense organ that quietly works in the background. Imagine if we could smell the aroma of coffee not just with our noses, but also with our palms. While this sounds fantastic, research shows that the skin does indeed pick up chemical signals. Did you know that linear perspective in painting is a little trick of the eye? Renaissance artists began using a special technique to create space, making their paintings appear three-dimensional. The secret lies in how lines and shadows create the illusion of depth, even though the canvas remains flat. Sometimes it seems as if the gaze of a character in the painting literally follows you wherever you go. It's a play of light, shadow, and perspective. For the modern eye, this is familiar. But in the 14th century, such works looked like true magic, as if the artist had managed to turn a piece of fabric into a window to another world. Have you ever wondered what dinosaurs actually sounded like? In the famous Jurassic Park, the monsters sound so terrifying that it sends chills down your spine. But the sound designers didn't find recordings of prehistoric reptiles. No one has ever heard them. Instead, they combined the most unexpected sounds, like the moans of mating turtles. These became the foundation for the fearsome roars on screen. It's amusing to imagine viewers holding their breath, believing in the terrifying roar of the T-Rex, while in the studio, sound engineers are stifling laughter, knowing that the king of the lizards sounds suspiciously romantic. In Germany, in the town of Oberstdorf, a unique lift has been built that moves diagonally rather than vertically. It takes tourists up the mountainside at a 45-degree angle, combining features of both a funicular and a lift. Imagine stepping into the cabin, the doors closing, and instead of the usual vertical movement, you start gliding as if on a slope. For those who love unusual experiences, it's a true adventure. Moreover, the view from the cabin is breathtaking. Mountains, forests, and sky seem to unfold before your eyes. This mode of transport demonstrates that engineering can be both practical and fun. The word robot first appeared in a play by Czech writer Karel Čapek in 1920. In his play RUR, robots were artificial workers created for hard labor. Interestingly, the author derived the word from the Czech robota, meaning forced labor. Ironically, 100 years later, this word has become a symbol of future technologies. Today, robots clean homes, assemble cars, and even compose music. It turns out that it all started with the imagination of a writer who coined a word that changed the world. In the United States, sheriffs are not appointed officials, but elected positions. Unlike many countries where police chiefs are appointed by the state, in America, residents of the county elect their sheriff. The term can range from 2 to 6 years, and it is the people who decide whom to trust with maintaining order. The sheriff leads their department, hires deputies, and operates independently from the FBI or police. Today, there are about 3,500 sheriff's offices in the U.S., ranging from small ones with 2 people to large ones with thousands of employees. Thus, a sheriff is both a law enforcement officer and a politician who must earn the trust of their community. The tall towers on old fire stations were not just for aesthetics, but served practical purposes. If you look closely at these old buildings, you can almost always spot a high tower. It was used not only for watching over the city and signaling fires, but also for drying long hoses after use. Wet hoses couldn't be stored coiled up. They would deteriorate quickly. So they were hung in the tower, stretching down to their full length. Sometimes signal balls or lanterns were displayed on the tower to alert neighboring stations about a fire. Thus, these towers functioned as dryers, communication systems, and symbols of vigilance. In the Emirates, skyscrapers are built not only for beauty but also for practical purposes. In the heat, height helps cool the buildings. At higher levels, the temperature is lower, and the shade from the towers covers parts of the streets. Thus, architecture becomes a way to combat the climate. Imagine a city where towers are not just decorations but a refuge from the scorching sun. Moreover, tall buildings save land, freeing up space for parks and roads. As a result, modern skyscrapers are not a whim, but a smart solution that transforms the desert into a comfortable and cool metropolis. The Hercules beetle truly lives up to its name. It can lift a weight that exceeds its own by 850 times. Imagine a person being able to lift a multi-ton truck. That's the ratio this tiny hero demonstrates. It inhabits tropical forests and primarily uses its strength to fight rivals and attract females. Males sport long horns, with which they battle for the attention of the ladies. Despite its small size, this beetle is a true champion of strength in the insect world, a symbol that greatness is not determined by size. Nature once again proves that strength can come in the most unexpected forms. In the tropical forests of Papua New Guinea lives a creature that is easily overlooked, the smallest frog in the world. It measures just 7.7 millimeters, less than a centimeter. Weighing about 1/100th of a gram, it hides among the leaves, appearing as a tiny dot. But don't be fooled into thinking it's quiet. Its voice resembles the buzz of an insect and can be heard from a considerable distance. This little one demonstrates that nature can create not only giants like whales and elephants, but also incredible miniature champions. It's astonishing how life and energy can fit into such a microscopic body. Imagine Venice at night, when tourists disperse to their hotels, and the city falls silent. You walk across an ancient stone bridge, and suddenly it emits astonishing sounds, like a soft melody. This is due to its unique design. In certain spots, plates are installed that begin to vibrate with each step. The effect of resonance transforms an ordinary bridge into a musical instrument. Tourists unwittingly become musicians themselves. These sounds seem to transport you to the past, to an era when Venice was a hub of trade and art. The city still knows how to amaze. Here, even the stones converse and sing if you listen closely enough. Turtles are true long livers of the planet. They appeared over 200 million years ago, surviving dinosaurs, ice ages, and numerous catastrophes. Their shell is not just armor, but a part of their skeleton that protects them from enemies and aids in survival. Some species can live up to 150 years, and sea turtles are capable of crossing oceans, traveling thousands of kilometers in search of food. Think about it. Long before the first humans appeared, these slow creatures were already calmly walking the earth. Today, when we encounter a turtle, we are looking at a living relic, a piece of the ancient world that has managed to reach us almost in its original form. Scientists have noticed an intriguing habit. When leaving a cave, bats almost always turn left. Why? One theory suggests that this helps them avoid collisions in their large colony. Imagine an intersection without traffic lights, where thousands of cars decide to go only in one direction. It's the same for bats. This common rule of movement makes flying safer. What seems trivial to us is a matter of survival for them. In the dark, order is especially important, and nature has elegantly solved this issue. Left it is. If Saturn surprises with diamond rain, then the phenomenon on Neptune is even more impressive. Under pressure and at immense temperatures, methane in the planet's atmosphere turns into diamond crystals that fall like raindrops. Imagine precious stones gathering in the sky instead of clouds. Of course, at depth, they break down into other forms of carbon, but the process itself is astonishing. A world where diamonds rain from the sky seems like a fairy tale, yet it truly exists. However, it's unlikely that humans will ever reach it. Conditions are just too extreme, but the thought of such natural luxury is captivating. The story of the first feature film in human history remains forever incomplete. In 1906, Australia produced The Story of the Kelly Gang, a film that lasted over an hour, which was a technical marvel for its time. Audiences were thrilled, but only a quarter of the film has survived to this day. The rest is irretrievably lost. Imagine if the first novel by Tolstoy or an early painting by Picasso had vanished. We know the film existed and understand its significance, but future viewers will never experience it in its entirety. The history of cinema began with a mystery that will always remain untold. Who would have thought that the most stolen book in the world is the Bible? Despite the sanctity of the text, it is the Bible that is most often the target of theft. In hotels, libraries, and stores, it is stolen more frequently than any other book. Perhaps it's because it's always within reach, or because someone considers it public property. Ironically, the book that contains the commandment, "Thou shalt not steal," is most often the one that gets stolen. This serves as a reminder that even the most elevated ideas can clash with the everyday weaknesses of human nature. In Hong Kong, some people live in apartments the size of a regular closet. Due to the housing shortage, so-called coffin apartments have emerged. Their area can be as small as 4 square meters, about the size of a large bed. People literally live in boxes. A small bed, a narrow shelf, sometimes a tiny table, and that's it. These apartments are officially called micro-apartments, but the residents ironically refer to them as coffins. The UN has even described this phenomenon as an affront to human dignity. Imagine, after a workday, you return not to a home, but to a cramped box where you can't even stand up straight. If you take a close look at Leonardo da Vinci's most famous painting, you'll notice something strange. The Mona Lisa has no eyebrows. Scholars debate whether the artist intended it that way, or if the eyebrows have faded over time. But this small detail makes her smile even more enigmatic. We are used to reading emotions through facial expressions, and the absence of familiar features is disorienting. It's like having a conversation with someone, but part of their words suddenly disappears. Each viewer fills in the gaps in their own way. Perhaps that's why the smile of the Gioconda is so captivating. It communicates with us through the silence of missing details. It turns out that the rubber snake is not just a toy, but a real animal. In Canada, there is a harmless snake with the surprising name of rubber snake. It is completely safe for humans and is even used in therapy for people with phobias. Due to its calm demeanor and soft body, it is used for gradual acclimatization to snakes. There have been no recorded cases of attacks on humans. Interestingly, the rubber snake that we usually think of as a prank toy actually exists in nature and helps people overcome their fears. Sometimes even the names of animals sound like a joke from nature. The giant squid has eyes nearly the size of a basketball, about 25 centimeters in diameter. These enormous headlights are essential for its survival in the depths where eternal darkness reigns. With its eyes, the squid can detect even the faintest light, like the flash of a bioluminescent fish or the approach of a sperm whale. Imagine an underwater world where nothing is visible, and suddenly a massive eye spots the slightest glimmer. It may sound eerie to us, but for the squid, such eyes are a guarantee of life. In a world without light, it becomes a true master of night vision. An ant is like a small truck with a two-chamber system. One stomach is for itself, to digest food and gain energy, while the other is for the colony. It stores food there to share with other ants through a special process called trophallaxis. This means ants literally feed each other mouth to mouth, functioning together as a single organism. If one finds a sweet treat, it not only carries it home but also shares it so others know the way to the treasure. It's like if we could eat a pastry and immediately pass a piece to a friend straight from our stomach, along with the address of the nearest bakery. Sometimes pirates went to sea not for gold, but for hats. In the 17th century, English pirate Benjamin Hornigold once stopped a merchant ship, but he wasn't interested in gold or spices. He and his crew had overindulged the night before and thrown their hats overboard. So Hornigold demanded only new headgear from the crew. It's a funny situation. Imagine how terrified the merchants were, expecting a raid, only to be told, "We just need hats." Even fearsome pirates found themselves in silly everyday stories. When a group of ferrets gathers, it's called a business. This is quite fitting. They are constantly bustling about, exploring everything around them, stealing shiny objects, and darting around as if discussing important deals. Imagine a small office where the employees wear fluffy tails instead of suits. They jump, play, and look so busy that you can't help but think, yes, they really are hard at work. This amusing name highlights the nature of these animals. Active, curious, and a bit chaotic. It's a business you could watch forever. In Milan, skyscrapers have been built that resemble giant flower beds. Thousands of trees and shrubs have been planted on balconies and facades. This is the Vertical Forest Project. Buildings that not only provide housing but also purify the air, create shade, and reduce noise. In a city filled with cars and concrete, they have become green oases. The residents of these homes literally live among the treetops, not in a country house, but in a high-rise. Beautiful and beneficial at the same time. Architects have demonstrated that nature and the metropolis can be allies, not enemies, if trees are given space even on the 30th floor. In 2006, a fisherman from the Philippines accidentally caught a giant pearl weighing a whopping 34 kilograms. He kept it under his bed as a talisman for 10 years, unaware of its value. It later turned out that the find was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Imagine, an ordinary fishing trip turned into a treasure larger than a football. The pearl was named the Pearl of Lao Tzu and is still regarded as one of nature's most astonishing discoveries. In Norway, they came up with a strange yet fun competition, the championship for throwing frozen salmon. Imagine people gathering in a square, taking a huge fish and throwing it as far as they can. It started as a joke among fishermen, but has since become a tradition that attracts tourists from all over the world. The atmosphere is more like a celebration: music, food, fun, and fish flying through the air. It may seem crazy, but it's these kinds of things that make a culture unique. Every country has its own quirky pastimes. Some have bulls, some have pancakes, and in Norway, there's flying salmon. It seems obvious that matches came first and then lighters. But it's the other way around. The first lighter was invented in 1823, while matches appeared 3 years later. It was created by the German chemist Johann Wolfgang Dobereiner and operated on hydrogen. The device looked bulky and dangerous, but the principle was the same: a spark and a flame. So the familiar pocket item once resembled a laboratory instrument. It's ironic that lighters are older than matches, even though matches are now seen as the more ancient way to make fire. Sometimes science plays with coincidences. The same equation is discovered by two different scientists. The Lorentz-Lorentz equation got its name for a reason. It was derived independently by two researchers, the Danish scientist Ludwig Lorentz and the Dutch scientist Hendrik Lorentz. The difference was nearly 10 years, and they were unaware of each other's work. In the end, both published almost the same discovery. Science sometimes has such quirks. People in different countries working on similar problems arrive at the same results. This shows that discoveries are not random. They hang in the air, waiting to be noticed. Long before the invention of the microscope, an ancient Roman scholar suspected the existence of microbes. Marcus Terentius Varro, in the 1st century BC, wrote that living near swamps is dangerous. There, he claimed, tiny invisible creatures linger that can enter the body through the mouth and nose and cause diseases. No one had microscopes back then, but Varro's keen observation was remarkable. His advice was long regarded as merely the warning of an elder, but centuries later it was confirmed. Malaria-carrying mosquitoes and numerous pathogenic microbes indeed thrived in swamps. Thus, Varro effectively made one of the earliest hypotheses about the existence of bacteria and viruses. Today, humanity has explored only 1 to 5% of the ocean. Everything else remains in the dark depths, where humans have rarely ventured. Unknown species, entire ecosystems, and even new sources of energy may be hidden there. Imagine, we know more about the moon than about the ocean floor. This paradox astonishes scientists and fuels the imagination. What lies beneath? Giant creatures, underwater cities, or just darkness? Each new descent of exploration devices reveals a piece of this mystery. It turns out that the ocean is the last great enigma on Earth. Some mushrooms have the amazing ability to glow in the dark. This process is called bioluminescence. At night, they emit a soft green light in the forest, creating a fairy tale atmosphere. Scientists believe this glow attracts insects that spread spores and help the mushrooms propagate. For humans, it appears as true magic, walking along a path and seeing the ground beneath your feet illuminated by mysterious lights. It's no wonder such mushrooms have inspired legends and tales. It serves as a reminder that even in the most ordinary grove, one can find wonder if they look closely at night. Beneath the ice of Antarctica lie entire mountain ranges comparable to the Alps. The Gamburtsev Mountains represent a true hidden world. Their size rivals that of the Alps, but they remain unseen, covered by a layer of ice more than 3 kilometers thick. These mountains formed around 100 million years ago, yet thanks to their icy armor, they have remained almost in their pristine state. There may be valleys, rivers, and even subglacial lakes, as if frozen in time. Scientists study them only through radar and satellites. Thus, right beneath the feet of the polar explorers lies a vast world about which we know almost nothing. The International Space Station is not just a laboratory in orbit. It is the most expensive man-made object ever created. Its construction and operation have cost around $150 billion. For comparison, that's nearly 50 times the cost of the Eiffel Tower. The station has become a symbol of cooperation among different countries, with Americans, Russians, Japanese, and Europeans working together on board. Experiments are conducted there that cannot be performed on Earth. And while the amount may seem astronomical, the results are worth it. The ISS has opened the doors to life beyond our planet and represents a step toward future flights to other worlds. Dubai loves to impress with architectural wonders, and one of the ideas is skyscrapers that rotate around their axis. Imagine a building where each floor can slowly turn, offering residents a new view: the sea in the morning, the desert in the evening, and the city lights at night. This technology requires complex solutions, but it transforms the building into a living mechanism. Additionally, the rotation helps evenly distribute sunlight throughout the building and saves energy. This is not just a striking concept, but a step towards smart architecture, where comfort and beauty go hand in hand. Dubai once again proves that the future is already here. The snail may seem slow and harmless, but it has a whole arsenal in its mouth. Thousands of tiny teeth located on a special organ called the radula. With this rasp-like ribbon, the snail scrapes its food, leaves, bark, even stones covered in algae. The teeth are so small that they can only be seen under a microscope, but they make the snail a true connoisseur of nature. Imagine having a mini saw in your mouth that works non-stop. It sounds funny, but this is what helps it survive in various conditions. In the tropical forests of the Amazon, there grows a palm that locals call the walking palm. Its roots are structured in such a way that the tree can slowly move several meters in search of light. Old roots die off while new ones grow on the other side, making the palm appear to take a step. Over the years, it can walk several meters, changing its location. Of course, it's not a stroll in the usual sense, but the sight is impressive. A tree that moves to survive. Scientists debate the speed and scale of this process, but the fact itself is astonishing. Nature once again proves that even trees can seek their place in the sun, literally on the move. It may seem strange that banknotes vary in size across different countries. In fact, this is done intentionally to make life easier for people with visual impairments. In euros or pounds, each banknote differs in length and width, allowing individuals to identify them by touch. This is convenient not only for the visually impaired, but for everyone else as well, reducing the chance of confusing denominations. In the US, however, all banknotes are the same size, making it difficult for tourists to quickly distinguish between them. Additionally, varying sizes serve as a protection against counterfeiting, as it is challenging for fraudsters to replicate precise dimensions. Thus, banknotes hold not only monetary value but also a hidden consideration for the people who handle them daily. 4,500 years ago in ancient Egypt, people were making dental prosthetics. Archaeologists have found jaws with artificial teeth secured by gold wire. Of course, it looked crude compared to modern technologies, but for its time it was a medical marvel. Imagine how a priest or noble could smile again despite losing their teeth. The Egyptians always sought to defy time, from embalming bodies to the first attempts at prosthetics. In this, they were true pioneers. The banana plant may seem stationary, but it can actually move. Over its lifetime, it can shift about 40 centimeters. This is due to its root system. New shoots grow slightly away from the old ones, and gradually the entire plant seems to step forward. You can't see this with the naked eye, but if you speed up time, you can observe how the banana family slowly moves toward the sun. This ability helps the plant survive and find better spots for growth. It's amusing to think that even bananas, which we tend to consider simple fruits, actually have their own little secret of travelers. In English, a group of ladybugs is called loveliness, which can be translated as grace or charm. This is perhaps one of the most fitting names for these creatures. Imagine a meadow where dozens of bright red bugs are crawling through the grass. The word herd would sound harsh, while loveliness perfectly captures the mood. Language often reflects people's attitudes toward nature, and in this case, it is incredibly warm. It feels as though the ladybugs themselves have earned the title of the cutest beings in the insect world. We all dream of hitting the big jackpot, but the odds are so slim that even the trip to buy a ticket is more dangerous. Statistics show that the likelihood of dying on the way to the kiosk is higher than winning the grand prize. It's funny, but it's true. This doesn't mean buying a ticket is pointless. After all, excitement and hope are part of the game. But it's important to remember, true luck isn't about winning millions, it's about getting home safe. So when someone says, "I'm pretty sure I'm going to win," you can reply, "The main thing is not to get into an accident on the way." Sometimes just living life is the biggest win. Imagine an animal that can live its entire life without drinking a single drop of water. This is the kangaroo rat, a small rodent found in the arid regions of North America. They obtain all the moisture they need from the seeds they eat. Their bodies are designed so that their kidneys process moisture extremely efficiently, resulting in urine that is thick and almost paste-like. Because of this, they thrive in conditions where even camels would struggle. Remarkably, these tiny creatures have proven to be more resilient than animals renowned for their ability to endure thirst. Nature seems to have crafted them as a symbol of survival in the desert. Today, speeding is a common offense, but the first case in history is quite amusing. In 1896 in England, a man named Walter Arnold was fined for driving at just 13 kilometers per hour. Back then, that was 4 times the allowed speed. The police caught up with him. On a bicycle. The story became a sensation as cars were just starting to gain popularity. Today, 13 kilometers per hour seems laughable, but this incident marked the beginning of a long history of traffic regulations. It's funny that it all started with such a modest violation. In Kenya, there is a remarkable phenomenon known as moving lakes. These saline bodies of water can disappear for months and then reappear elsewhere when the rains come. It seems as if the earth itself is shifting them on the map. In reality, this is linked to underground rivers and tectonic processes that direct the water to areas with voids. For the local people and animals, it poses a real challenge. Birds and herds are forced to follow the water as if it were a living entity. Imagine, a familiar lake has vanished and you search for it in a new location, as if trying to catch up with an old friend. These wandering lakes demonstrate that nature operates by its own rules, and sometimes even the most familiar things like water can be unpredictable. Did you know that avocado can be deadly for animals? For humans, this fruit is beneficial: vitamins, healthy fats, trendy toasts. But for birds and horses, avocado is toxic. A substance called persin in their bodies causes severe poisoning, sometimes with fatal outcomes. So, what is a superfood for us is a poison for animals. This serves as a reminder that we can't measure everything by human standards. Even familiar foods can be dangerous if an organism isn't adapted to them. What is beneficial for one form of life can be harmful to another. Even carousels in different countries spin in different directions. In the UK, carousels traditionally rotate clockwise, while in the US and continental Europe, they turn counterclockwise. This difference stems from the fact that in the past, carousel figures were designed for easier mounting from the left side. The British deemed one direction correct, while those across the ocean chose another. The result is a curious phenomenon. The same amusement moves in opposite directions in different parts of the world. It may seem like a minor detail, but it highlights how culture influences even entertainment. It may seem like ordinary things, but if you take a closer look, they hold the most unexpected stories. If you enjoyed this journey through the world of curiosities, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's even more to come that text